Hello and welcome. I'm John Miller, founding attorney with Rock Solid Law. I really look forward to this morning's presentation, which as each week that we are doing these Zoominars for the firm, we're trying to hold under 30 minutes certainly and right around the 20-minute mark. I think we're going to make it today unless there are more questions than I anticipate. And then next week, we're going to talk about what the heck does it mean to fund your trust. I'll mention that again at the end. Thank you for that feedback, by the way, John. So each week, we're talking about subjects regarding estate planning. Our firm also practices real property closings and title work, as well as business. As the state seems to be opening back up, we are now planning to go to bi-weekly. We don't want to overplay our hand and offer more than you guys are interested in, but please feel free to give us some feedback, whether the cadence of weekly is good, whether bi-weekly will be good. I think once a month is not enough. There's just too many things that I find interesting that I'd like to share with you guys. And today's a really, really cool one, because today's subject is me telling you when you don't need a lawyer. And I know that I hope you're chuckling. Often people find that as a goal. We try to be the kind of law firm that improves your lives, that makes things better in your life. So today we are talking about a part of estate planning, which is called a separate writing. And I will show you, it can have many forms, but when our firm does it, it looks something like this. Now you're going to find out a lot about what that sheet of paper means today. But first of all, many of you know that I am a student of history, really enjoy history. In fact, my college major was in the European Renaissance and Enlightenment. I'm not going to take you quite that far back today, but I would like to tell you a little story, and I have a prop. This is an urn, and you will notice that it has symbols all around it, including a rodent, which I believe may be a rat. Of course, rats have a bad reputation unless it's the Michael Jackson song Ben, or if you're from Orlando, the rat has probably meant that you have had a better life because of the money that Disney's brought in. This particular rat arrived by delivery one day at my home some years ago. And this urn came from China. You see, my father's mother, who was a PhD in economics and worked for the Department of Labor and wrote a book on behalf of Eleanor Roosevelt for Mrs. Kennedy, or President Kennedy, on the status of women in the United States in the early 1960s. And Helen Hill Miller, my grandmother, had a very close friend whose name was Mavis Cobb. Our family always knew her as Miss Mavis. John, why are you telling this story? Why? Because she was a hero. Mavis Cobb was a secretary who went back to law school sometime in the 1930s or 40s and earned her law degree in the Washington, D.C. area, and became one of a very small minority of women who practiced law in the nation's capital throughout the middle and toward the end of the 20th century, had a very successful career. And we were always a little bit intimidated by her because she was an amazing and powerful woman. Well, when Nixon opened China in the early 70s, if you're young, you may not know that there was a time when US citizens didn't visit China. My grandmother and her dear friend, the attorney, decided to visit China. Many years later, I believe the last time I saw Mavis Cobb was at my grandmother's memorial in Washington, D.C., which I'm pleased to say was attended by Supreme Court Justice David Souter, with whom I later had a little bit of correspondence. And he and my grandmother were good friends. So Mavis Cobb was somebody that was important throughout my life, but not someone I'm related to, and not someone that I saw really that many times. Some years later, after my grandmother had passed in the mid-90s, this package arrived at my door with this beautiful urn from China. You see the, I guess, peacock type bird? I don't know. It turned out that because of her dear friendship and what my grandmother had meant to her life, that this attorney who had had this amazing career wanted to give something to me and each of my 3 siblings. We had no idea that we were going to receive a gift at all from her. Yet, there it came in a box one day. Imagine our confusion when it showed up. Now, I keep that urn here in my law office, and I see it every day. I may not think about it every day, but it would have been right up there in all the Zoominars that you've attended if you've attended any of the past ones. You can check me out at our website, rocksolidlaw.com/videos for any of the ones you might have missed. And you'll see that urn would be up there every week, but this. So what a gift. What a remembrance of her in my life. And now I think of her often. And I think of her love and relationship with my grandmother and her love and care of me, because she took the time to write down on something like that special, separate, come on, John. What's the title of today? Separate writing, to put John Miller's name and address and the urn that I bought in China while visiting with his grandmother. So not only do I think of Miss Mavis Cobb, attorney at law, but also of my grandmother. And isn't that a special gift? She didn't leave me money. She didn't leave me a legacy of that kind, but her legacy lives on in my mind. And now that I've told that story to you, just because of her thinking to share that with me after she was gone. During her lifetime, I never knew that she would consider our relationship important enough to want to leave me a gift. So today I get to tell you what you can do as part of your estate planning without a lawyer. And that's exactly it. The separate writing you do not need to do with us or any other lawyer, okay? We have people that know those gifts, you know, like grandmother's ring, I really want my daughter or niece or whoever, my best friend, to have, and they know how to put that, and they'll give it to us, and we'll prepare that as part of the plan that they sign when they finish their plan with us. But they can also change their mind later, and they can leave it blank that day and go fill it out later, or they can never fill it out at all. Now, I know some attorneys don't like the separate writing because it means clients can do things without them. It means they can effectively change or cause some conflict within their plan without the lawyer being involved. But I don't look at it that way. I think it's a wonderful way that people can leave a legacy as Mavis Cobb did for me. So you don't need a lawyer to change it, and you'll notice it's not even witnessed, but it's dated. So you don't even need a witness, certainly not a notary, to do this document. What can you list? Well, you can list stuff. You can list things you can hold in your hand. You can list things you can wrap your arms around. You can list stuff, okay? You cannot list, this is the important part, real property. You should not list highly valuable things which should be left in a specific bequest within your will or trust, but you can. If they're titled, I would prefer them to be included within your documents, but you can give them away on a separate writing. You cannot give money. You can't leave $10,000 to my best friend in your separate writing. You can not only not leave money, you can't leave a bank account, you can't leave a CD, you can't leave an investment account, you can't leave anything that actually stands for money. Those things have to be treated other ways. So this is the cool stuff you've got. You picking who you want to leave it to, all right? In my case, many of you know, I'm going to leave my guitars to specific people. I haven't decided thoroughly who yet. I'm waiting to see how our children develop as musicians and which they might want to have. I have brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law, many of whom would play, and I want to dole those out in a certain manner. I'm not going to do that in the body of my will or trust. I'm going to do that on my separate writing. All right. So you cannot do real property. You should not do titled things. So I would prefer not to see a car, a boat, those sorts of things in there. And you cannot do things relating to money. How often can you do it? You can do it every day if you want. You can do it once every few years. You could do it weekly. I find most people get one down and then maybe sometime later go back and review it. They'll see some things they would change. So go ahead and do it. You don't need us, but I sure would like for you to copy us with it. So there's a copy of your most recent one somewhere. What's important about it? I already said it once. You've got to put the date on it. You want to have that date on there so we know which is the last one you left. Now, I mentioned my children a little while ago. You can see them above my head in some of the pictures, which are a little bit dated at this point in time. But what my kids live at the beach, so one of their favorite sayings is shred it, right? So what do I want you to do with that old separate writing after you've filled out properly, dated, and signed the new one? I want you to shred it. Put it in the shredder. Tear it into tiny bits. Put it out in the garbage. Bring it to us. Let us shred it for you. We have a shredder here that gets good use for keeping our privileged information of our clients privileged. So we would be delighted to shred it for you. I want you to get rid of the old one. Don't leave two. Please don't leave two of them behind. Of course, the later dated one will control, but that's how arguments start. Also, I would ask you not to list things in there that you have specifically listed within the body of your will or trust. Okay, just makes sense, right? So I would love for you to put that, the final one you do, with your original will and trust, which you will be keeping in a safe, fireproof place. That's a reminder to those of you that have it on a bookshelf somewhere. If you can't locate it, come see John. And I want you to give us a copy. Just send us one in an email. Just drop off a copy. We want to keep it with your documents, so there's a record of it too. All right, so after all, I am a lawyer, so I couldn't give this talk without bringing up the Florida statutes. There's a law that makes the separate writing into being. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's in that. I'm going to buzz that in about 5 minutes, and over a period of 5 minutes. And if you want to ask questions during that 5 minutes, go ahead and put them in the chat box, which is located somewhere about right there, the bottom of your screen. And I'll answer any questions about estate planning subjects, specifically about the separate writing then. So what is a separate writing? It's a written statement, right? You don't have to use our form, but it's got to be a written statement or list. Statute even says it's just going to be a list, but it's got to be referred to in the will, right? We're going to refer to it to say there is a list out there, or there may be a list out there, and that reflects your desires, all right? And it's tangible personal property or personality. That's stuff. That's what I talked about a little while ago, trying to describe things you hold in your hand, things you can wrap your arm around. Not your house, not your bank account. Okay? Other than property used in trade or business. Can't be the stuff you're using at work, right? Not otherwise specifically disposed of by the will. Don't put stuff that's in the will on this list, because the will is going to control. You cannot change something specifically bequeathed or granted or given in the will. You may not change that with the separate writing. We need to change that with a codicil, which is a pretty easy process, by the way. So, to be admissible under this section is evidence of the intended gift. Now we're talking about the trial lawyers. This is somebody said, no, I wanted great-grandma's cake pan, cookie jar. Those are the things people usually get into a fuss about. The writing must be signed by the testator, that's you who did the will or trust, and must describe the items and the devisees with reasonable certainty. My best friend Fred, my nephew Eddie, my niece Sarah Sue, and describe the thing with reasonable. Great-grandma Hill's emerald brooch. that I have enjoyed using that has the 7 diamonds around it, or or the Fender Jazzmaster guitar from approximately 1973, something like that. Make a distinct description of it, and then it can be done before, with, or after the will. I told you that. Anytime is fine. It can be altered anytime. That's fine too. And I love this. It may be a writing that has no significance apart from its effect upon the dispositions made by the will. That means it could be included with something else, or it could not be included with something else. So it could be a writing that has other purposes. It could be a writing that standalone has no other significance. If more than one effective writing exists, to the extent there's a conflict, the provisions in the most recent, right? So that's the most recently dated one. I've told you to shred it with the old ones, right? Don't keep those around after you get it done, so nobody can have a fight. One of our main purposes of estate planning is to have your wishes set out so perfectly that nobody is going to argue and go to court over, right? And then, right, and that's only if they're inconsistent with those wishes of the previous one. So as long as you're consistent in them, but you might decide, people do, I thought I wanted so-and-so to have that, but she's not acting right, so I don't think I want her to have that anymore. I want so-and-so to have it. That's the kind of thing you can do in this separate writing. Pretty straightforward, right? We always include them in every estate planning package. We want people to be able to do that kind of work without us. We're going to check up on you periodically after you do your estate plan, and we'll see if you've got a new one and get a copy for it. So I have one question. Thank you, and I will get the old readers on and answer that one. If anybody else has a question, go ahead and ask. I see I am right at the 18-minute mark, so I'll try to get you guys out of here between 20 and 25 minutes unless you have a question. So take photos, maybe a good way to add to document. Digital file. Absolutely, you should keep a digital file of this and every other document. And I love that idea. Have a digital file where you're using that to supplement your separate writing and to help you describe what it is. So you could say, remember Grandma's brooch, and describe it, and then say, as pictured in figure 3 contained in the attachment here too, and also in the digital file, which is located in blah, 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 such a place. I would want to, if you're going to have that kind of file, make sure the person you put in charge, your trustee or your personal representative, has a copy of it as early on as you're comfortable with. Now that does mess up the element of surprise, like we had with Mavis Cobb in my lifetime, in my life. So any other questions this morning? You guys, it's such a pleasure to get to share this information with you. We had a good group this morning. I didn't get to welcome everybody. A number of you have come on right at that 2-minute mark. It's funny, you guys must be on to me. Sometimes when I have to get on a Zoom meeting, it does take a couple minutes to get on as well. So as a reminder, not seeing any more questions, next week we're going to talk about what the heck does it mean to fund your trust. Really essentially important conversation. So I hope that you guys will sign back on next week, same time, and that we'll have a great conversation about what it means to fund a trust. Important aspect. I'm not seeing any questions. Whoop, here comes one. Yes. Oh, Lisa, thank you. You're so very welcome. And I appreciate that. And I hope that all of you guys will stay really healthy during these trying times as well. Glad to be of service to the people that you work with, Lisa. Thanks for being here. Here's the Commodores. Listen, live long and prosper, stay well, be healthy, and be safe. I'm John Miller, founding attorney, Rock Solid Law.